I am world-class athlete extraordinaire Montel Vontavious Porter, MVP, and you are watching mirror.co.uk. Ballin'.
So MVP, tell us about your involvement at the Royal Rumble.
I intend to make a huge impact because I've said all along that when I was United States champion, you know, the U.S. Championship was a very prestigious title with a very rich history, and I was very proud of that title. However, I said that I would treat the U.S. Championship like my cars and my women. When I get bored, I upgrade, and I'm ready to upgrade to a World Championship. So the Royal Rumble's as good a place as any to start.
And you're predicting a win for yourself then?
Oh, naturally.
And so how did it come about that you got involved, came into wrestling and sports entertainment after serving 9.5 years in prison? How did that come about?
While I was at work release, I was basically work release is sort of a transition between being incarcerated and being out in the free world, where you live at a correctional facility, but you're allowed to go out and work in the community. But at night you have to return to the facility. There was a correctional officer there, primetime Daryl D, and he was an independent wrestler. And he would bring in videotapes sometimes of independent shows or sometimes of pay-per-views, and would let us watch them. And he'd bring in championship titles. And I would always press him, ask him questions. I wanted to know the behind-the-scenes info. And he finally told me that he was going to start his own independent promotion and that he was looking for new talent. And if I was interested, he would teach me. And, you know, I was getting out soon, and I was just thinking that I needed a hobby, something to do to keep me out of trouble. And I said, all right, sure. So after I had been out for a few months, he called me up, and he had a ring set up in his backyard, and I started training, and it, you know, the proverbial took to it like a fish to water kind of thing. It came very natural to me.
The performance and the athletic kind of aspects?
Both, yeah. As a matter of fact, the very first day, as I was, you know, learning how to apply some holds, you know, he made the comment, man, who taught you how to sell? You know, I didn't know what the terminology meant, but, you know, I was a fan of wrestling, so I had a basic understanding of how things were supposed to work.
Another guy that's credited as one of your trainers is British wrestler Norman Smiley.
Yes.
How tough was that training period in developmental in Deep South? Is it set up like a dojo? Is there a strict hierarchy? Or?
Well, I have to differentiate. Norman Smiley was at a much, much earlier stage,
sure,
at the very beginning. And he was the one that actually introduced me to Japanese wrestling and English wrestling. But the Deep South experience was Bill DeMott was the head trainer who spent a lot of time in Japan as well. And it was heavily influenced by the Japanese dojo-style training with, you know, hundreds of squats and just conditioning drills. And it was very, very tough. And there were a lot of people that didn't make it because it was just so physically demanding and psychologically demanding as well. So
surely that's about the element of respect and earning your stripes, showing you can last and make this, you know.
To an extent. Yeah, that's fair. And to an extent, it should be that way. But I think once you get to a point where you've proven, okay, yeah, you do have the internal wherewithal, then I think at Deep South, there was an emphasis on that. But I think that the problem is if you're brand new to wrestling and you haven't experienced that, where there are a lot of people who had no experience whatsoever were being sent there, and it was a complete shock. It was overwhelming to some, and those were the ones that didn't make it. But the guys that had already spent some time in the independent circuit, or guys that were extremely hungry, you know, a lot of the time I trained like that anyway. Before I got to Deep South, you know, doing 500 squats a day was part of my training regimen, so I was prepared for it. But it was quite a shock if you weren't. There were guys that would come there and just the warm-ups before we actually started our training for the day, you know, guys would be throwing up and passing out.
That'd do them in.
Yeah, too much for them to handle.
So MVP is currently on a very long losing streak. Why can't you buy a win? And where's this leading to? Will eventually the fans be cheering for you out of sympathy?
This is how I explain the losing streak. Be familiar with American football?
A little, yeah.
Okay. Well, a lot of the time in American football, the quarterback will throw a deep pass to the wide receiver, and he's heading towards the end zone, and there's the ball, and there's a wide open end zone in front of him. So before he actually secures the ball with that catch, before he establishes possession, he's already in the end zone, and he drops the ball.
Okay.
That was my issue for a while. But
So you're slipping on a banana at the end, is your opinion?
I just not being focused, or maybe being too focused. Sometimes when you try too hard, and I think I'm the longest reigning United States champion in WWE history. I've had some extremely memorable matches with some of the greatest in our industry. I hold wins over people like Rey Mysterio, Batista, the Hardys. I mean, I've beaten some of the best of the best.
Ric Flair.
Naturally, Ric Flair, defending my United States championship against him. So it's not a matter of am I good enough. I've shown that I'm good enough. I just, even the greatest go through slumps.
Maybe that's going to come to an end at the Royal Rumble then.
It may have already come to an end.
Okay, all right. The film is getting a lot of plaudits in cinematic circles with reported praise for accuracy from the likes of Roddy Piper and Greg Valentine. Do you think that this film could help boost the mainstream popularity of wrestling in WWE?
I think it could. I haven't seen the film yet because in the States it was on a limited release. So as I understand, I think it was only in Los Angeles and New York and a few places. So I haven't had the opportunity to see it yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it because my colleagues who have seen it have all said that it's a very accurate depiction of life in the indies, the independent wrestling scene. But how much of that will translate to people who watch that aren't familiar with the WWE product? Sure. They're in for quite a surprise because there's this very big difference from the WWE and the independent scene.
I think it's that surprise about it that's got people so excited because it's opening up to mainstream what a lot of people automatically perceive about wrestling in WWE and the independent.
Yeah.
They write it off immediately. It'll show a different kind of element, whether that's accurate or not.
Well, I think a very important factor is when I first came home from prison, I had no idea what an independent was. I didn't know there were indies.
There's no TV exposure.
Exactly. And certain regions, there are some small promotions that might have a local affiliate or a small time slot. But I think a lot of people will be surprised to find out that, aside from the WWE, there are small independent promotions that run throughout the world, actually. And if nothing else, it'll do great for independent wrestling. And hopefully, if independent wrestling does well, that will continue to spill over to the WWE.
Okay. You were knocked out by Evander Holyfield at Saturday night's main event. If a boxer ever stepped into your ring, would you do a better job than Big Show did at WrestleMania with Floyd Mayweather Jr.?
See, first things first. We lost the light. Well, first things first, let's keep in mind that Evander Holyfield hit me with a sucker punch. Okay?
Sure.
So, head-to-head, toe-to-toe, I can take Evander Holyfield. He's way past his prime anyway.
In boxing, you can take Evander Holyfield in boxing.
I can take Evander Holyfield in boxing, wrestling. There's nothing Evander Holyfield can beat me in.
Right.
Nothing. 20 years ago, maybe we might have had a different situation.
He would have stood a chance then.
Maybe. I'll give him his credit. He's one of the greatest of all time, no question. And let's also keep in mind that Floyd Mayweather knocked the Big Show out with brass knuckles. Let's keep that in mind as well, all right? Having said that, everybody knows that professional wrestlers are pound for pound the toughest athletes on the planet. And a wrestler against a boxer, on any given day, the wrestler's going to win. Because once you take the boxer off of his feet, everything that he's dedicated his life to is now rendered useless. So,
I won't even extend that question into mixed martial arts fighters, but...
well, we are the original mixed martial artists. Before there was a UFC, there was the NWA.
That's true, that's very true. You've been diagnosed with a heart condition, Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, which also affects the likes of Marilyn Manson and Meatloaf, apparently. Really? How does that alter your training regime or how you perform in the ring?
Oh, well, it never altered my training regimen, and it never altered the way I performed in the ring. There were times when I had an accelerated heart rate, and for me, felt something was different, but I didn't know that anything was necessarily wrong. Once or twice, I took a seat and had to catch my breath, but I was never concerned about it. However, the WWE, we have a wellness policy, and most people are familiar with the wellness policy in relation to drug testing, which we have a stringent, drug testing policy for narcotics and steroids. But what people don't know is that we also have a cardio stress test that we have to do annually, and that's how my condition was discovered. Mm-hmm. But immediately after it was discovered, right away I went and had a procedure done to correct it. So now I'm 100%.
Fantastic.
But I am half man, half amazing. So something like that might affect Marilyn Manson or Meatloaf, but not MVP.
Well, that's a given, obviously. There's a strong Egyptian influence with your tattoos. There's a casket of Tutankhamun, the Eye of Horus. What's the significance of that?
Well, in a nutshell, Egypt is the cradle of civilization. And I marvel over the fact that, while many parts of the world were still in hunter-gatherer mode in Egypt, there were institutions of learning and monetary systems, and it's while being a mystical place, it's still an amazing place, just in terms of many of the things, papyrus, many of the things that we still use today, originated in Egypt, and I just have a fascination with the people and the culture.
And how did that come about?
I'm intellectually curious. When I'm home watching TV, 90% of the time I'm watching History Channel and Discovery Channel, and as a youngster, I still read quite a bit, but I just stumbled up on some books, and I was fascinated with the pyramids and how they came to be and who built them, and that led to my fascination with Egyptian history and culture.
Fantastic. And have you got any plans for more tats at all?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do, but I'll keep them under wraps. Pun intended.